Leadership begins the moment someone tells you what you can't do, and you decide they don't get to write the rest of your story. I'm Navira Walkowitz, class of 99. Long Blue Leadership starts now. Well, Dr. Jannell MacAulay, class of 98, welcome to Long Blue Leadership. This is an amazing time for us. We're excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I know this has been a long time coming, so I'm excited to be here with you to start a conversation.
Absolutely. And I do want to highlight some of the things you've done. It's probably true that the list is shorter for me to say what you haven't done, but pilot, combat veteran, you're a leadership strategist, you're a mother, a wife, author, we'll talk about that later, also really getting into the space of a human performance specialist, a commander, all of these things that you've done, and 20 years in the Air Force and now having been out. I'm so excited to talk today.
Thank you so much for that amazing introduction. I don't know if I could live up to even what you just said in some ways. But yeah, I just would love to share with your listeners how amazing the Air Force Academy can be for the potential and the possibilities for someone's future.
Absolutely. So let's actually jump into a time early in your cadet days. So we'll tie it right to the Air Force Academy. There was a moment in time where you literally broke your femur. I'm curious, did it break your dreams too, being a cadet at the time?
It almost did. And there's a story to that. So I'll go into that a little bit. So during basic training, I developed a stress fracture, running in combat boots, especially the old black version that we used to run in.
I remember.
Not a good thing for your body, right? And so I had developed this pain in my right quad. To the point where I could not even stand on my right leg to put my left pant leg on during, as you're rushing to banging on the doors, you will be dressed, open the doors to be dressed.
Yes.
And I would be, Welcome to the Jungle playing. I'm putting on.
I remember that
but,
too.
Right? I'm putting on my pants and I'm like in pain. And my roommate's like, what is happening? Like, you need to go see the doctor. And I refused to at first. Okay. Of course, right? Because we
push through it, right?
And then when I finally went, they were like, here's a ACE bandage and some vitamin M, Motrin. Keep going.
Yep.
And of course, I didn't know anything different, so I kept going. And then it was 3 days after basic training had finished, and I was at cheerleading practice, and I was doing a backflip, and my femur leg literally snapped in half.
Oh my gosh.
It sounded like a tree branch. I just collapsed to the floor. And this was before we had cell phones, right? So if you can imagine, I'm 17 years old, so I hadn't turned 18 yet. And so they couldn't give me any pain medication. The ambulance is rushing me to the emergency room at the Academy Hospital, which was not equipped to deal with what just happened to me. So they sent me up to the Army hospital in Denver. At the time, it was Fitzsimmons. They couldn't understand why a 17-year-old's femur would just snap in half.
Right.
And no one wanted to really address the fact that maybe it was a stress fracture at the time. So they actually told me I had cancer.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they did a bone type of cancer. And so they did a biopsy on the bone. I lived in traction for 10 days while all my classmates were continuing on with their freshman year. So I was they eventually determined that this was not cancer. This was actually a stress fracture. And so the two choices they gave me was a cast from my hip to my toe for about 6 months, or they were going to put a rod and 4 screws. So a rod the length of my femur, 2 screws in my knee, 2 screws in my hip. And then the doctor said, either way, you're never flying airplanes.
And that was your dream.
That was my dream. Yes. My uncle had flown Marine One for President Reagan. So I grew up watching him fly helicopters in the Marine Corps, fly the president, and just thought he was the coolest person ever. And I wanted to be just like him. He took me to the air shows. So yes, it was a crushing moment. It was something where I thought I could either let what people were telling me, the doctor saying, you're never going to bend your leg like this. You're never going to be a runner. You're never going to be a pilot. And I could let that define me, or I could choose to define myself and what I was going to be capable of and what the possibilities would be for me in the future. And so it was very hard for 17, 18-year-old to process all of this. But my dad used to tell me a quote, and it was, vision is the art of seeing the invisible. And he would always tell me, if you could see it for yourself, you can make it happen. And so when it came time for being pilot qualified, I actually chose to get all of the metal removed out of my leg, just so that there was no reason for them to not allow me to go to pilot training. And so I went through that, which was another
surgery.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
So through all of that, I have learned, that was the first experience where I learned a lot about myself and what I was what I could focus on, how I could set a vision for myself in the future, and how I could start to eliminate the noise. That's what I call it now. I didn't have language for it at the time, but it's eliminate the noise that does not serve us in pursuit of our passions, in pursuit of our dreams. And that was what I had started to do, which it's kind of full circle that is now my career, to help other people do it.
I want to peel that back a little bit. There's so many things. I mean, your dad's quote, vision is when you can see the invisible. I think I paraphrased that a bit. Say it one more time.
It's actually a Jonathan Swift quote, and it's vision is the art of seeing the invisible.
Okay. So were you always that way growing up because you had, your dad in your life just sharing that kind of thought with you? Or has it been a series of just experiences that you've had that have kind of really made you that way?
So my dad has always been a very positive role model in the sense of eliminating barriers and dreaming big. So when I was 7 years old and I was a ballerina, he used to tell anyone that, and I distinctly remember this as a little girl, he would tell anyone that would listen that I was going to grow up to be a submarine warfare commander or a combat pilot.
Oh, wow. Not a swan, ballerina.
No. And I would literally be in my tutu and he would tell strangers at the grocery store, right? This is my daughter, Jannell, and she's going to grow up and do these amazing things. And in the 80s, women couldn't do those things.
We weren't there then.
Right? We were not allowed to. Right. And so I didn't know that. I didn't grow up thinking that there were barriers on what I could become. And I think we have this role as parents to help our children see what's possible because, they can either be told where the limits are or they could be told where the possibilities exist. And I think my dad did a lot of that for me. And so that I think is a lot of my story is like journeying through challenge and trauma to figure out that I didn't have to listen to that voice. I could create a new one. And my dad taught me how to do that. And then I've kind of developed what I think are skills and training because it's hard.
Yes.
It is very hard to do. And so that's been what my Ph.D. work and my research has been focused on is how can I help other people who don't have maybe those resources or that parent in their life that have taught them those things. How can I give them those tools?
So you were a cadet when you made the decision that you still wanted to be a pilot and you didn't want there to be anything that said you couldn't. So you made the decision to have the metal removed from your body. As we think about decisions that we have to make in life, that could be dream opening decisions or dream closing decisions. How did you come to that decision? And, what would you share to someone who's at a similar crossroads in their life? Like, how do you navigate? That's a tough decision you made.
It was a huge decision. I think part of it is understanding what are you passionate about? Who do you want to become? And not just about what you want to do, what type of person you are. That's a lot of what I think mental skills work is as well, is like, who's the person underneath? Because once you figure that out, then the doing follows, right? Like you could do anything. And I was the type of person underneath it all that did not like to be told no. Right? Or I loved it when someone would say, you can't do that. Right? It's like the challenge is what inspires me and motivates me. And so when they were saying you will not be a pilot, it was like, okay, well then how do I get to yes?
Right.
And part of that path was I had to have the metal removed. Now there were some arguments like maybe you'll be fine. I didn't want to take the risk. Right? I was like, nope, I don't want to give anyone an excuse to take something away from me.
Yes.
That was kind of the mindset at the time.
So I think that really dives into this idea of, you can, when you said yourself, the no in front of you is kind of like, how do I turn that into a yes? Clear out the noise. How did that play into your life as an Air Force officer? Because I'm sure that you came across a lot of what were seemingly no's. What did that look like?
So and this goes back to the academy as well. I tell young people today, my greatest gift is to tell them, choose your hard.
Choose your hard.
Choose your hard. Right? Anytime I'm asked to speak to a college, high school audience, like I do mental skills, but a lot of times the theme is choose your hard. Because I think young people are always in pursuit of like the easy button. And then when they encounter hard, they're like, oh, there's got to be a better way. The lesson is it's all hard, right? It's all hard. So determine what you want to do or who you want to be more, and how you're going to get there. Set the vision and then navigate through the hard. And I would argue you need to equip yourself with the mental skills to do that. And in pursuit of that, there is going to be no. Right? There are going to be challenges. And part of it is accepting the challenges instead of being afraid of them, because it is through those challenges that we're actually going to accomplish great things and we're going to get to reach our dreams and our goals. And I think that is something I struggled with, but I found a way and a path through it. So I think that there's always going to be no in your life. And, I like to create opportunities so then I get the choice instead of just having to default to someone else telling me no. Like even when I left the academy, I applied for pilot training, for grad school, for physical therapy school, right? Because I wanted to have opportunities. So then I got to choose which path I wanted in the future, which hard I was going to choose for myself in that moment.
I'm thinking about, you went into the Air Force as a pilot and you talk about choosing your hard, and you also are a mother. Let's talk about that piece. I think just navigating the and in being a mother and a leader and an Air Force officer and a combat veteran and pilot, et cetera. I mean, that's a lot.
It is a lot. But I think underneath it all, the person that I am is one who not balances my life, but harmonizes it and all the roles that I get to play. Right? I think that's the greatest thing about the Air Force. You list all those things that I've done. I was watching the cadets yesterday throw their hats. I was one of them with just a bright future and so much possibility. And under one organization, I got to fly multiple airplanes. I got to go back to school numerous times, study a lot of interesting topics I have a degree in exercise physiology from Penn State to my Ph.D. in strategy. So I got to study all these different things. I got to work in chemical weapons, which I know we're going to talk about later. I got to fly around the world. I got to lead people all under one team, right? One organization. And that is the greatest thing I think the Air Force can give people if they take those opportunities that are in front of them.
Yes. Well, let's jump into a time you brought up Syria. And so let's go there, because I think I would like to hear more about the story and how it kind of unfolded around the chemical weapons there.
So I got sent to, so I went to the School of Advanced Air and Space Studies, SAS. Okay. And my husband and I were actually the first married couple to go through SAS together.
Oh, wow.
And stay married at the end, which was good. There was one other married
concept that it works.
Exactly. There was one other married couple with us at the time. So there were two married couples, which was really unique. But I took, through SAS, you get a strategy focus, and you have to go do a strategy job somewhere for your staff tour.
Okay.
And so my husband really wanted to go work at the Pentagon. So he was on the joint staff working on the Israel-Palestine desk for the chairman. And I was like, what else could I do in DC to keep my family together? That would be interesting. And there was this job at this little organization called the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. And DTRA, as they're known, is the brain trust for everything weapons of mass destruction. So chemical, biological, nuclear weapons, planning, research, execution of missions, that is all run out of DTRA. And so I was like, that sounds interesting. I've never done anything in any of this space, but it'll be an easy job is what I thought, because I was about to have my second baby. And every time I'd call them, no one ever answered past 3:00. So I'm like, this sounds awesome. Yeah. Exactly. I get my staff tour done and I get to do something new.
Right.
But I was a fish out of water, former pilot, going into this situation of WMDs. They gave me that job also because no one wanted it. It was almost asking people who are experienced in the world of chemical weapons to do an impossible task. Right? To handle an impossible problem. And so at the time, nobody really wanted to put their name to it because there was a no-win. We don't have diplomatic relations with Syria. A bad civil war was happening there with an evil dictator, right? How were we going to solve that problem without any type of relations? And then, their proxy of Russia, right? So then it's we didn't have the greatest relations with them. So when August of 2013 occurred and Assad used chemical weapons against a civilian population, 1,400 people died. almost instantaneously from sarin gas. Sarin gas is one of the most awful chemicals immediately, right? It's like paralysis. It makes your eyes water. Like you become, it's a horrific way to die. And when that happened, my life changed because all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, this is real.
Right.
And who's been studying this problem? And at the time,
it was you
and me and my team. And so we kind of got thrust. I went to London almost immediately to start briefing our international partners on what we had been building and studying. And luckily we had been for the better part of 6 months working on this problem. And then shortly after that, I went to The Hague because Syria did turn over their chemical weapons to the international community. And there's a whole story behind that. Obviously, we got the Russians to help with that. And then I got sent to The Hague to work at the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. The OPCW is who has all the inspectors and the teams who help destroy and inspect, right? The status of these chemical weapons. And so I got sent there to work with them and negotiate directly with the Syrians and the Russians to build the plan. And I remember when my boss was like, you have to go and I don't know when you're coming back. We need someone over there to be running point on this mission. And yeah, he sent me and he said I didn't have to go, right? He knew I had little kids. Andrew was just turned 1. But he said, we need you. And this is what I picked you for this mission. And this is what it's for. So yeah, that was a rough
wow. Moment. What went through your mind when you were asked to go and you had the opportunity to make the decision? What went through your mind? Besides the fact that you had young children and
yes.
all of that, yes.
Well, of course, I think like most mothers, you never are like, I so want to leave my kids, right? I want to go. Yes. But I knew it was the right thing to do because I had the ability to make an impact and a difference because I knew the mission inside and out. I was the right person at the right time and I was ready. I distinctly remember I went home to talk to my children. Well, Allie, she was 6 at the time. And I remember talking to her and I said, Mommy has to go away to handle this mission. And what I'm going to do while I'm away is there's some really bad stuff that some really bad people have. And I'm going to work to take that stuff away from them so that they cannot hurt anyone anymore. And she looks up and she's, crying. We're both crying. And she said, Mommy, like a superhero? Oh. And I just kind of nodded and she's like, you can go, Mommy.
Oh.
Like, you can go. And it was in that moment that I realized that's why we do these jobs. It was, to protect her, to model to her that I can be a mom, I can be a strong mom, and I can also go do things in the service of my country and the service of my nation. And it was important for me to go. And then, so that was a driving force, knowing that my family was going to be okay and supportive. But the other driving force was thinking about the mothers in Syria who lost their children and thinking, here I was holding mine.
Right.
And they will never get to hold their children anymore. I mean, hundreds of children died and were put in mass graves after this. And mothers didn't get to say goodbye. Mothers didn't get to hold their children. And they suffered immensely in those moments. And so I kept thinking about the Syrian mothers and how if I could do anything to help prevent something like that from happening again, then I had to go, right? I had to do that for them.
Would you say that mission or that time in your career was something that was so impactful in your life? It changed you, or it maybe shifted your focus on things you were going to do later? Or was it just at that time, this is where I need to be doing and making an impact in?
There's a whole story behind it where we were dismissed and we came up with the innovative idea of how to solve this problem by destroying these chemical weapons on a ship, Navy, on a ship in the middle of the Mediterranean. And
was that because you were told it couldn't be done that way?
We were told it. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, interesting.
We had to actually start a whisper campaign within the Pentagon.
Wow.
And the State Department and the National Security Council to get our idea heard. And eventually it did.
So I'd like to take a little bit of time in that space of when you recognize that you need to keep pushing forward, right? The choosing your hard. How do you navigate that? What would you recommend to somebody who has been no? How do you work your way through that?
Well, I would first ask, where is the no coming from? Because if the no is coming from your inner critic, right, I know how to get rid of that and eliminate that. And that is actually what most people, like that is what prevents most people from doing great things. I like to say that we all have these crucible moments in our life, a moment where we're asked to do something that we really don't think we could do, right? Like we're kind of like, oh my God.
Deep down, you're like, ooh,
yeah, like, I don't know if I can do this. Can I do this? And in that moment, we have the opportunity to either hesitate or commit.
Was Syria your crucible moment?
Yes, it was very much a crucible moment. You could either hesitate and say, oh, no, I can't do this. This is too big for me. Like, I can't take this responsibility, or I can't make this decision, or I can't believe in my idea because the voice in your head says so. But sometimes it could even be real people telling you and dismissing you and saying, like, you can't do this. So where does the no come from is always the first question.
Right.
And if it's an internal no, you can train your mind to eliminate that noise.
Yes. Okay. I like that, because then it opens up your eyes to the possibilities of who you might connect with that can then help navigate through some of that challenge.
And here's the reason why we as humans love this. What happens when you step into discomfort, right? You're at that moment, that crucible moment, and then you decide to commit and you step into discomfort and you navigate through it and you get to the other side. How does that feel?
Amazing.
Right? You like throw your arms up in the air and you're like, I'm a badass. Right? Look what I just did. Like, and even you're like, I didn't think I could do that. And I did it. That is what we live for as humans. I don't think people realize that. Right? Like we want those moments, but we don't want the discomfort that comes in getting them.
We want to be at the other end of it.
Right. We just want to be at the other end of it because we love that moment where we throw. So you're not going to throw your hands up if you're like, oh my God, that was so easy.
That's a good point.
Right?
Yep.
You wouldn't be like, oh, I feel so good about it. I feel accomplished.
You wouldn't even share with people because everyone could do it. Right.
Exactly.
Yes.
So we do love those moments as humans. And I think that is part of what I teach people, how to not be afraid of the discomfort, to get more opportunity and more times, more reps of those throw your hands up in the air and be badass.
Yes.
Right? Like, and that's really what I think it's about, is being ready for that moment. And the more often you're ready for that moment, the more often you step into discomfort, the more throw your hands up in the moment, throw your hands up in the air moments you get.
So if humans are chasing that, and that feeling of like, commit, raise your hand, get through it, and, kind of bask in like that moment because you loved it so much, there's probably a desire to seek more of those opportunities.
Yes.
How did you navigate your career after that? I know you served 20 years. Was there a point where you're like, it's time for me to move into this space? Or did you just happen to really decide to commit to this new world of like mental performance and toughness?
So I, like most military members, I went through a phase where I got really caught up in my identity as a Air Force officer, Air Force pilot. And it can be scary to leave that identity, the one you've always known, the one that you've been comfortable with. And even though I'm
successful in,
and even though I do enjoy challenge and discomfort, it was scary, right? It is scary. And I think that, first part of my story was, I don't know that I was necessarily completely ready to leave. But the Air Force was making it really difficult for my family.
Okay.
My husband and I, was a maintenance officer, pilot. You would think maintenance and pilots, very like cohesive, compatible for yes. We would be able to be stationed together. We spent 6 years apart, and 2 of the last 3 that I was in the Air Force, we did not live together.
Okay.
And that was hard. Our kids are getting older.
Right.
And I distinctly remember I was in New Jersey commanding a squadron. My husband was in New Mexico commanding a group. Note to the Air Force, New Mexico and New Jersey are only close in the alphabet, right? These are not close locations.
Yes, not at all.
And full disclosure, I had the kids with me and an au pair because I couldn't have done it otherwise. And I remember my husband flew home. He would get in at like 2 a.m. on Friday night and have to leave by 10 a.m. on Sunday morning, right, to get back. And I remember we woke up our son, he was 4 at the time, and he looks up and he goes, Mom, Dad, you're together.
Oh.
And I was like, no, this is not okay. Like, I don't want my children to just wake up or just be grateful when their parents were in the same room. Like, that's not what I want for their childhood experience. And so I actually gave up my commands 6 months early. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever done because I loved being a commander. But I was at a point in my life where I realized my squadron will get another commander who cares so much about them, just like I do. But my kids only have like one mom.
On you. That's right.
And they had one dad, and they needed us together. And so that was a hard decision, but it did set me like on a trajectory to think about retirement, to think about, you know, what I could do on the outside. And actually it was like divine intervention. I actually lost my pilot qualification.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I have a rare eye disease. And so I've gone very blind in my central vision, like 80% blind in my right eye. So I was going to get my pilot qualification taken from me. And I think that was God's way of saying, it's time, right? It's time. Like, this is not your path anymore. You have a different gift, right?
Yeah.
Flying was a great gift. Leading in the Air Force was a great gift. There's a different path for you. And so that's when I retired, and then kind of realized there were so many people that wanted to hear this information. There were so many people that were struggling with this idea of, how do I perform? How do I manage stress? How do I like get those badass, like throw my hands up in the air moments? And I started by working with high performing teams, the military, first responders, hospital workers, you know, then COVID hits. And I realized everybody needs it. Yes. Stress, you know, like psychological disorders, like they're on the rise, anxiety. And if I knew how to help people, why would I keep that to myself, right? Like, it's just became something I became passionate about.
Goodness. That's probably something that people don't know just by looking at you, that you actually have an eye disease that you battle through. And I'm curious on when you started into this work, like you said, COVID hit and you realized everybody needed this. It almost is a bit of, maybe reinvention is not the right word, but you literally change your trajectory completely, even though you had all that schooling. So my question is, how did you actually, how do you determine who you work with? Because the land is so vast of who needs it, you know? I mean, how do you actually do that? How do you navigate that?
There's only one of me, so it has been
Right?
it has been hard.
Yes.
My tribe is always the military. And even though I do spend a lot of time in the private sector working with, you know, companies from Amazon, NBC Universal, like hotel chains, different industries, which I love.
Yes.
Anytime a military commander reaches out and says, we need help, whether it's burnout, whether it's just not optimizing performance, whether it's stress management. Because if you look at the majority of DEOCs today, people are burnout and stressed out. And
the organizational climate surveys.
Yes. Or climate surveys. And so most of the time, how do you manage that as a commander?
Right.
Because, and here's the thing about stress and burnout. Stress is a perceived emotion. Right? People don't think about it, but what stress is your perception as to whether you have the mental resources to meet the demands of a given moment. So your brain, when you're faced with a stressor, something comes at you, and it's a stimulus, right? In your environment, whether it was like a contentious conversation, traffic, it was like a big decision, like flying a plane in combat, right? Whatever that is coming at you. Your brain does a like split-second calculation as to whether you have the mental resources to meet the demands of that moment. And if your brain says, oh, hell no, like this, it becomes overwhelming, it becomes stress, it sends you into this like spiral of like maybe anxiety, which is like, and what anxiety actually is, it's your mind's creation of what you think is going to happen in the future. It actually hasn't happened to you. Anxiety is a complete creation of the mind. Right? It is, our minds are fantastic at mental time travel. Yes. They will take us in catastrophizing about the future.
Right.
I like to tell people the majority of the catastrophes you will experience in your lifetime, they will only happen inside your head. Right? They will feel very real because our minds are fantastic at this time travel.
And then it turns it into physical.
Yes. Then it becomes like part of our physiology. So, and this is what leads to chronic stress. It leads to preventive illness that sets in because we live our lives in this chronic state of stress. And stress, again, it's a perception. So you could also be stimulated by that stressor. And instead of getting overwhelmed, you could say, bring it on, right? Like, there's a challenge.
Yep.
And I've got the resources to meet this moment. It's a choice.
Right.
Again, I get people can be like, it's not as simple as that. It is as simple as that, but it's hard in practice, right? And most of that is because we have spent 20, 30, 40 years training and wiring our brains for one direction, which is to for stress and survival.
Right.
And so when I do ask people to flip it, you can't just flip it overnight, right? These are not soft skills. This is why what I teach is very hard because you're rewiring your brain. The good news is it's called neuroplasticity. We can rewire our brains, but it does take work and deliberate commitment. And that's why, I see this all the time with spouses. They're like, I don't see why this is a big deal. My wife is freaking out, or vice versa. Like in a cockpit, like I'm calm and I'm like, why is my co-pilot freaking out? It's that perception and how our brain deals with stressors.
So we have a lot of listeners that are leading people. How do you navigate their ability to help others through that? Or is it really more dependent on the individual themselves? Like, do you need the individual to do the work with you, or can you work with the leader and help them navigate that with their folks?
You can absolutely work with the leader. And as a leader, you can role model the behaviors. So there's some real science behind this. For example, how often is a leader creating the storm instead of being the calm in the storm? Right? People
Probably
will
more often than people realize.
Right? It really is. And it's almost one of those things where the leader can be the calm in the storm, right? But when they're not, they embody the stress that then pervades through their organization, right? Like they create that culture.
Right.
And so if you have a boss that comes in every day stressed out, if you have a boss that's not sleeping, I absolutely, this is what drives me crazy about leaders in the Air Force who will say things like, I only sleep 3 or 4 hours a night. I'm like, you are bragging you're suboptimal, right? From someone who studies performance and psychology, like you are literally telling people, I am not ready to make decisions on your behalf or be your leader today.
You are, like how you said that, you are bragging you're suboptimal.
Yes.
That, and right there, those words, that's fantastic.
Right? Yeah. But it's part of our culture, right? To even kind of be like proud of it.
How much did I actually, keep myself up to get more done?
Yes. And so here's another example. I'll tell a quick story.
Yes.
When I was a commander, sat down Monday morning meeting with my peers. And one guy says, I worked all day Sunday on performance reports. Like I have a sick kid at home, so I only got like 2 hours of sleep, like barely had time to grab coffee, but I'm here to be a badass. And then the next guy goes, well, let me tell you something. I worked Saturday and Sunday on all my performance reports. And oh, by the way, 2 sick kids at home, so I didn't even sleep last night.
Wow.
I didn't have time to grab coffee, but like I'm here to be a badass. And then they turn to me, like expecting me to one-up them on my stress. It's a culture of competitive stress that we live in. And instead I said, well, my husband doesn't live with me. I had to get all my work done last week so I can spend the weekend with my kids. Oh, mind you, I had the OSS, they had flying squadron, so I had triple the size squadron.
Yes.
But I got all my work done last week because I was more focused in my work. Then I hung out with my kids. Everyone slept great. Like no one's sick. We're all good. I've got my yummy green smoothie to start the day. And instead of anyone at that table saying, oh my gosh, how do you do that? The sentiment was, well, she's obviously not working hard enough.
Wow.
That's our culture. Like our culture is one of, if you're not stressed, if you're not showing how busy you are, you're not valued. And actually that is not the path to performance. The path to performance is quality over quantity. It's sleeping. It's demonstrating to stay calm. It's making good decisions. It's, so we as leaders can either set that tone that we're in this competitive stress, which then makes our captains not want to be us. Like that's a huge problem.
Right.
But if you're the type of leader who stays calm, if you're the type of leader that they see, they go home every night on time. They do leave early sometimes to go to their kid's soccer game. That should be okay. But I never didn't perform my job. Right? I was still working hard and doing the things I needed to do every day. I just was more efficient. Here's the stat. We mind wander half our waking moments. Do you know what that means? Like we've all read a page in the book, got to the bottom. Yep. Don't know what I read. Drove in your car someplace. Don't know how I got there.
Yep. Autopilot.
That's when you have an off-task thought. Your brain, your attention system goes off-task during an ongoing task or activity. I'm telling my brain to pay attention to driving or reading. It goes elsewhere. It's unintentional. And when our brain does that, it mind wanders towards stressors, worries, catastrophes, rumination. To-do lists. Exactly. All of those horrible things that then make you more angry and distraught and unhappy. right? So what if we could get control of that? Stop spending so much time in that distraction and be more focused. Well, you do that by not having your phone all the time. You do that by looking at people and actually listening.
Right.
Because this is where leadership comes in. If we're having a conversation and I'm telling you something important, you're my commander, and I look at you and I'm like, she's looking at me but not listening. You can feel that as a human being.
Yes.
Right. And so leaders can be mindful and focused and pay attention. And it doesn't take that much, but it takes awareness. That's really what we're training. When we train our minds, we are training our awareness. I'm not saying that I am perfect at being focused. I am not perfect at staying calm. The difference is when I start to get out of control, I recognize it quickly and I redirect. When I notice myself not paying attention to our conversation, I redirect very quickly. That's the skill. That's what we're not teaching enough leaders, I don't think. We're getting there. Because I think leaders can set the tone, leaders can set the example. And when I was a commander, I collected data and we found that, over 60% of the leaders I was interacting with on a daily basis, changing their life. Based on the things I was teaching them, based on the way I was modeling behaviors. And then the greater squadron, it was like 35%. And I didn't even teach them anything. I just demonstrated an example. So imagine once you start teaching people, how much more those stats will grow and how people's lives will change.
Right. Well, one of my favorite stories, I think that, and I'm thinking about our leaders that are listening in here as they think about how they can be better leaders. One of the stories you shared previously was actually recognizing someone by calling someone important in their life to share their good news. And it took like 2 minutes. I think what a wonderful lesson. Like being a great leader and championing someone does not have to take a long time, but the impact could be forever.
Absolutely.
Do you mind sharing that story? Because I just think that's such a wonderful one.
I love that story. So I had an airman who got below the zone to senior airman. And I used to do a thing where, whether it was a coin or whether it was an award or whether it was just a job well done and we wanted to celebrate someone in the squadron, you could send someone an email.
Yep.
Okay, I hate email, which I did also as a commander, no email Friday.
Really?
I did not check my emails on Fridays because I wanted one day where I wasn't chained to my desk. Like I was like, in fact, you know how my wing commander found out I was doing no email Friday?
Because they emailed and you didn't email back?
Yeah, well, he got the out of office response that said, welcome to no email Friday. I'm not checking my email today. If you really need to get a hold of me, call me.
Right.
Here's my phone number.
Right. I love that.
So I did that to ensure that I could spend more time with how do you lead people if you don't know them?
That's right. You can't.
And if you're sitting behind your desk or you're checking email, you can't know people. So I would spend Fridays out and about, and we used to do this thing where I would call someone special first for someone if they had a big event or whatever we were celebrating. So one day this airman got below the zone and I asked him to pull out his phone because I used to call people and people don't answer strangers' numbers anymore.
Who's this number?
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
Yes.
So that stopped working. And I was like, pull out your phone. Let's call someone special that you pick. And because everyone's going to answer their kid, right? And I've actually talked to like spouses, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, like brothers, sisters of people like over the course of my command. And I asked him to pull out his phone, called his dad. I got to brag on him a little bit, say like, hey, this is what your son is doing. And most of the time, kids don't even tell their parents what they're doing in the Air Force. So it was an opportunity for that. At the end of the conversation, and I remember it just like it was yesterday, the dad said, I'm so proud of you. I love you, son. And I looked up and my airman just had tears streaming down his face and I was getting choked up. And my airman said, my dad has never said that to me before. So we're busy as leaders. Like we are go, go, go. We are in a competitive stress environment, whether we want to be or not.
Right.
And I'm just asking leaders to pause, right? And it doesn't have to take a lot of time, right? Just pause. Those types of interactions you have with an airman, the next time you need them to work late, the next time you need them to take the hill, the next time you need them to go deploy or whatever it is, you've built a level of trust that only happens when you're paying attention. And that's what the future fight is about. The future fight is about connecting as human beings and focusing when we're doing those hard and challenging things. And the way we do both of those is by training our attention system. We have to pay attention to each other and we have to pay attention to our jobs so that we can be high performing when it's hard.
This has been excellent. I didn't. Wow, got me so.
Sorry,
tears in my eyes.
I know.
Sweating in my eyes here in this, in the studio. No, this is wonderful. I'm curious, with all the work that you do in helping others, what is something you're doing every day to stay sharp yourself in this space, to be better as a leader? What's something you do?
I am really big on continuously challenging myself. Like I always want to have a goal or something hard in my future. Like I think that, especially as we get older,
Yes.
I think it's really important. And so on a personal front, I just signed up to run 50 miles.
Oh my goodness.
And I got 5 friends to do it with me. So I'm like
all right.
real excited. Yeah, it's not all in one day. It's like you run a 5K, 10K, half marathon over the course of 4 days. And
so the longest race at the end. Wow.
Yes, that's why it's a big challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's my next one.
When is that?
That is in January.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, just about. And again, for someone who was told you will never be a runner, I think that's also why I want to do it, you know, just to prove to myself that I can. And,
yes.
So that's kind of a personal challenge. But on the leadership front, you know, I challenge myself every day. Writing a book was scary, right? You know, when I go and work with each team, whether it's someone in the, you know, like a company or whether it's a military unit, I try to take my time to like customize exactly what they need. It's not just going to be like cookie cutter for everyone. And so that's like my continuous challenge is, can I go into an environment and lead and instruct and educate and train in a way that's meaningful to that group? And that's, you know, what I do for my job. But most importantly, I love this sentiment that you can be everything to someone or you can be someone to everyone. Sometimes in my job, I get on a stage, I talk to thousands of people,
Right.
and I'm someone to a lot of people, right? I can give them a little piece of what I teach, but I also have 2 young people in my life, my children, that my role to be everything to them is also very important. And so I try to harmonize that the best I can, because it's easy to get caught up in like, I'm just going to go out there and keep sharing this message and forget that there's people closest to me. You know, leadership is about influence, right? Your 3-foot circle, which one of my classmates at the academy, Rodney Bullard, taught me, right? Your 3-foot circle is who you interact with, whether it's your family, your team, your neighbors, your community. And so you have the ability to continuously lead. And I want to continuously lead by example and teach people that we need to train their minds. It's not a woo-woo thing. It's a hard thing that requires deliberate and consistent practice. And it will pay dividends if you give it the focus and time it deserves.
I appreciate that you use the word that you like to harmonize things in your life versus balance. I think that's a very distinct difference. It's really impressive. If you could go back in time and talk to Jannell, young Jannell, or maybe it's even just talking to your daughter when she was a young girl, what advice would you give her in this space of leadership?
Well, I would say to, you know, choose your hard. And I wish somebody would have imparted that a little bit more on me. I had that sentiment, and I had a lot of grit, and I had a lot of determination. And that's why I did accomplish a lot when I was younger. But it was more difficult than it needed to be. I'm not here to say like it makes it easy. It can be easier when correspondingly, like you have grit, you have determination, you're repetitively challenging yourself. That builds mental strength. But if I had known that I could also train my mind in a deliberate way in parallel, just to make it a little bit easier and to also find the joy in the journey. There's a picture of me when I got back from a KC-10 deployment, and I'm holding my daughter. She was 15 months. So it was like the first time I had deployed when she was young, and that was a hard deployment. And I remember, like, I look at that picture, and I can see in my face and in my eyes that I was already worried about the next thing. Right? Like, instead of being joyful that I was holding my daughter, I was like in this great moment.
That's what I was expecting you to actually explain. That's crazy. Yeah.
I wasn't there. Like my mind was already like, okay, I got to go again. Like, when's the next thing? Like when was my next 3-week trip that I have to leave her? When is the next thing that I'm going to miss in her life?
Wow.
And, you know, we spend a lot of time living our lives stressful moment to stressful moment to stressful moment. And I wish that I could have learned earlier to embrace the moments in between, to see them, right? I mind wandered through many of them. I was just worried. I was catastrophizing. I mean, how many of us spend time in the military? As soon as you get to your next assignment, you're already worried about what your next one is, right? You're like, okay, what do I need to do? Like,
yes.
And for me as a joint spouse couple, there was no protections for us back then. Like, I love that there finally are.
And much better now, yes.
Right. I'm so grateful for that because we did not have those protections.
Yes.
It was like, here's where he's going, here's where you're going. And unless you had a commander or a leader that cared enough to make a phone call, you're going separate ways.
Right.
And so I wish that somebody would have told me then to stop worrying so much about the next thing and just live more in the moment. I would have saved myself a lot of extra stress, a lot of extra angst, and I would have had more joy. And so that's really what I want for this generation. And that's why I work so hard and I'm so passionate about this, is because if I could do it again, that's what I would want to remember.
So with so many listening and watching, this is your opportunity to be, something for many. What is the thing that they might do, a small thing they could do just in their lives to be a little bit better in their mental space and their mental capacity or performance?
Gosh, I teach like an 8-hour course on
I know,
this,
that's why I'm like,
so
that's why I was like, okay, here's your nugget, everybody. Pay attention.
Okay, can I give you 3?
Yes,
because
of course.
I
Yes.
feel like that, oh gosh, I could which ones to pick. The first one is to start practicing mindfulness, to start doing mental push-ups. You cannot layer in productive thinking. You cannot pivot your mind unless you eliminate the noise. Right? Like, that's the first thing you have to do. You have to be able to see the thoughts inside your head and make a conscious choice not to follow them.
Okay.
Because a lot of them are not providing value to you, right?
Right.
And this skill set that does that is mental push-ups, is mindfulness.
Okay.
And it's this idea of, the definition of mindfulness is being in the present moment without any emotional reactivity or judgment.
Okay.
Like, just be here now without judgment.
Okay.
That's what it means. And it's a deliberate practice of continuously being here now without judgment, so that when you are in a moment with lots of judgment, you can filter, right? And especially that's where greatness comes from. It's not because of a great moment. It's because of what you do in the moments you're given. Second thing is for leaders, stop asking people, how are you doing? Okay. I want them to rephrase that question and ask, what's going well for you today? And the reason we do that is for there's 2 reasons. The first one is when you ask someone how they're doing, you're going to get
a loaded question.
Exactly. Yeah. And most people are just going to give you like busy,
right,
good, fine, living the dream, whatever, right? But
yes.
Did I as a leader get any information from you when you say any of those?
No.
In response? No. And then what we do as leaders, they go, how are you doing? How are you doing? How are you doing? And then if we
check the box, check the box.
And if we happen to have someone who's like, oh my gosh, let me tell you, you're almost like, oh my God, good for you. I got to go, right? I didn't mean for you to actually tell me, because that's our culture again, right? So I want leaders to start asking people, what's going well for you? And that does 2 things. Now I'm going to get information from you based on your answer. And that information is also going to start training your mind and your psychological framework toward optimism and hope. Because do you know the biggest problem for leaders today, I think, is missing the hopeless people. We think that there's this binary of optimism and pessimism. And so the optimistic people, we can find them easy. And the pessimistic people, we can find them easy too, right? We usually focus on the pessimism because they're noisy and they're loud and they're annoying and they're bothering us and they're bothering the whole unit, right?
Right.
So you're like, and sometimes we're like, oh my gosh, Bob is so negative and angry. Like, we should worry about Bob. But the thing is that actually Bob's not your worry, because people who are pessimistic understand they're on a sliding scale. A pessimist thinks that there's a genuine belief that things could get worse. But if you believe things can get worse, you know they can also get better,
right?
Which is what optimism is, a genuine belief things will get better. So a pessimist, it's not binary. I want leaders to open up the aperture. There's optimism, there's pessimism, and then there's hopelessness and hope. So that's the second thing. And then the last thing is leaders suffer from what I call compassion fatigue. Okay, it's a very real thing. How many of us spend all day at work it's kind of a combination of decision fatigue and compassion fatigue.
Okay.
You spend all day at work making decisions for other people. You spend all day at work taking other people's problems. And if you're an empathetic person, like you take it on, right? You're like, oh my God, I feel so bad. Like airmen that are struggling with all these things. Then you go home and someone at home says, what's for dinner? And you flip out about what's for dinner, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, where did that come from? Like I didn't mean to snap. Or someone that's very important to you in your home life comes to you and needs your attention. And you're like, I have no more attention to give you. I have no more compassion to offer because I am done. Like I am burnt out. So it's a very real thing. And it's not an excuse. I might have given people a label for what's happening to them when they go home at night.
They're like, it's this thing. I have compassion fatigue.
Right. Yes. Which is very true. And it's a very real thing. And I'm not giving you an excuse. I'm telling you, you need to fix it. And here's how. You need to, every time, like the whole time you're at work during the day, you need to shed all the mental distress that happens. You need to shed the empathy, right? You're empathetic. The empathy that you use when you're in an interaction with someone builds like extra stress into it's actually in your like body.
Yes.
Right? Like there is.
You take it on physically.
Exactly. Yeah. You take on those physical, and it becomes a physical manifestation. You need to shed that. So what I have is called the waterfall technique.
Waterfall.
Yes.
Okay.
So when So when you're engaging with people, remember, we don't want to be distracted and not paying attention. So put your phone away once you invite someone in your office. Like don't have it. It distracts you by 20% if you have it on your body or in your view. Right? Just have it put away. So now you're more attentive. Then I'm going to listen to you when you tell me whatever's going on in your life. And I'm going to envision we're at the top of a waterfall. Visualization is very powerful for our minds. So we're going to visualize that waterfall. And I'm talking to you. We're having a conversation. I'm fully present. You might have some stuff going on in your life. Like I might have to take a note. I might have to be okay, follow up. I might give you some mentorship. But when we're done, your problems go down the waterfall. Right? Like we want to feel, oh, I'm their commander. No, it's still not your problem, right? The problem goes down the waterfall. So then the next person can come in. Now you're at the top of the waterfall again. I'm fully present with my next person that's coming in. I'm paying attention to them, not thinking about the other conversation. Right. Then when we're done, your problems get to go down the waterfall. It will protect, right, your energy. It will protect your compassion. And so that when you go home, it'll just offer, and then the other technique is before you walk in the door, do a mindful minute.
Mindful minute right there.
Right?
Well, I'm glad you shared 3 because I think, I think that's what it's about when you're on your leadership journey. And I think leadership is a lifelong journey. And I think anything we can do better, not only to help others, but to help ourselves as well is really important. So thank you for sharing that. Well, before we close, I want to go into this moment because you said yourself is a little bit vulnerable. You've written a book. Let's talk about Breathless and this journey that you've now undertaken.
So Breathless is the story of mothers. And it's my story and one of the women that worked on my Syria team with me. She was an Army officer, and we were both mothers of very young children at the time. And we also have 2 mothers in Syria that are sharing their stories with us, and they lost their children in the chemical attack. And so it's a story of mothers persevering through unimaginable odds, us working breathlessly to solve this problem and basically having kind of this weight of the world on us to come up with a solution that would work and solve the problem. And then these mothers living in this horrible genocide, right? In this horrible time of a civil war and under a ruthless dictator. And so the only reason why we're able to share their stories is because Assad, right? The liberation happened last January.
I was like, oh, they're actually featured in your book.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
And we originally started writing this book without their stories. And then once Assad fell, we reached out and we got 2 mothers to share their story. And one of the mothers, her children were just slightly older than my 2 children. And she lost both of them. The other mother lost her daughter, and her daughter was imprisoned during the Arab Spring. Her son traded out with her daughter because she was afraid of the conditions and what was going to happen to her daughter in prison. Yes. So the brother traded out with his sister, and the mother didn't find out until, her name is Said. She did not find out that her son Said had died, executed with 25 other prisoners before Assad left the country. So she didn't find that out till after liberation. So she lost a son, she lost a daughter. This other mother had 2 children, taken from her. And so the story is about both of our struggles. Saren literally takes her breath away, and we were working breathlessly, to help them. And just a story of what it means to be a mother, like what a mother's love, what a mother's heart will do. And I just talked to Saeed last week. We coordinated a Zoom together, and I got to hear her story firsthand. She got to meet me and understand my story. And it was very evident to me that she said something that was very pertinent. She said, the world has a short memory, and people have probably already forgotten about Syria, right? Like, oh yeah, something with chemical weapons, bad dictator, like it's another part of the world. Right. And so part of writing this book also is to keep her story alive, to not let the awful things that happened to these women, to the whole community of Syrians, right? Civilians, but especially the mothers who had to not even get to bury their children. Yeah. And to help their stories survive so that we can prevent these types of atrocities from happening in the future. So that's really, I had this conversation with her, and that was my promise to her, is that we're writing this book to acknowledge this horrific thing happened, to celebrate what women can do together, and to also just bring more awareness as to what a mother's heart means, and how it helped Tina and I persevere throug't this mission, and it helped them go through this awful, awful time and get to the other side, right? They had other children that they had to live on for.
Right.
So that's really what it's about. And that's what I hope to share with the world.
Well, I thank you for taking the time to write that and share their stories, because you're right. I think memory is so short term, especially if it's something that doesn't really impact, right? If you didn't feel any kind of personal impact. So I think bringing those stories to light is just a wonderful thing. So thank you for doing that. Can't wait to get my copy of Breathless.
Absolutely. And can I say one more thing to the young people today?
Yes.
When I was first in the Air Force, I never imagined that this mission was in front of me, that this opportunity was in front of me, or that I would be now writing this book and reflecting on my time. Again, I want them to know you don't have to be someone special. You just have to be willing to say yes to the challenge. That's really what it comes down to. And so I want to encourage all the young people who are just setting off on these careers to not be afraid of the challenge, to embrace it. And who knows what amazing things they're capable of.
All the possibilities, right?
Yes, all those possibilities.
Oh my goodness.
All those dreams.
Jannell, this has been amazing. I think what you've shared in your journey, in your moments, in your experiences, this is all about what Long Blue leadership is. Our listeners, those who are watching this, there's no doubt that they've taken something that is going to help them and their 3-foot circle around them, right? And their communities. So this has been incredible. When I think about our conversation the last hour, which has flown by, the things that really stick with me, Jannell, are, pausing, being present, that we aren't defined by, what we do, but by what we commit to and who we are, kind of underlying that. For everyone listening, I'm certain that you can take those 3 things to do. Waterfall, mindful minute, what's going well for you today? That's right, the positive question. Any of those lessons, I think, can be just game changers in our lives as leaders. So I want to thank you for being on Long Blue Leadership today. It's been truly my honor and pleasure to be with you. I want to thank all of you for joining us. And for anyone that you know in your network that is a leader that's going through their own leadership journey, have them tune into Long Blue Leadership wherever they get their podcasts. Because these are not just about amazing things that our graduates are accomplishing, but about the journeys and moments and experiences that our grads have gone through that can translate into your life. So thank you again for joining us on Long Blue Leadership. I'm Navir Walkowitz, class of 99. She was here, 98 nominates, is red in the house. We'll accept it this time. No, just kidding.
Yep.
But until next time, we'll see you again.
This Long Blue Leadership conversation was recorded on May 29th, 2026.